5 people are gone, so that should take down the craziness a little bit, right?
But you still have Mason
And Aaron. And Cora.
Cora.
Cora doesn't really disrupt, but she just talks constantly. I am.
So did they turn out where your trash are?
Huh?
I mean, you're using that for your...
Make sure you pay attention to the directions tomorrow. If it says find the zeros, remember you're writing your answers like x equals 2, x equals plus or minus 3i. As opposed to the directions that say write a linear factorization. I will not be answering that question during the test tomorrow. What does this mean? Right? Linear factorization means you find your zeros, and then you write them as a product of the factors. So if this was the answer to find the zeros, the answer for linear factorization would be like x minus 2 times x minus 3i times x plus 3i. That would be a linear factorization, right? You don't have to solve it, because you already are solved. Like, if you multiplied it out, you'd get back to the original problem. That would be annoying. But you do have to write the function given the zeros, which is like the going backwards way. So if I gave you a problem that said the zeros are x equals negative 1 and x equals I, what's the first thing that you have to know? It's not just I, right? Like if they give you I as a 0, then negative I is also a 0. And then you could write it as x plus 1, x minus I, x plus I, and now this is where Cora is not going to forget her y equals or f of x equals. But then also you have to multiply it out. That's where you would multiply this out, get your i's to cancel out, and distribute again. I'm not going to give you like a terrible one. Like the one on the worksheet was kind of terrible. Yeah, on the stapled worksheet, I don't know if I've...
Okay,
Not
not the one we just turned in.
the one you just turned in, but the stapled one I think I passed back to you yesterday. It was on the front page. It was awful. We also did some of those in homework quiz and also in our homework, so you can go back and look at those. Probably one on your review tonight. But that's kind of the long stuff, I think, from this chapter. Then 2.6, we jumped to rational equations. This was also on the worksheet that I gave you back yesterday. The domain, remember the domain is everything but your asymptote. So when you write your domain, you write things like x such that x cannot equal negative 1. Or you would write like negative infinity to negative 1, negative 1 to infinity. Right? Your domain is excluding those asymptotes. And then the directions on the asymptote problems are going to say find all the asymptotes. That means vertical, that means horizontal, that means slant asymptotes. So remember, for vertical asymptotes, you just set the denominator equal to 0. Right? The one thing I've been seeing people do is they want to tell me an asymptote is like this. X can't equal negative 1. Right? An asymptote is x equals negative 1, so make sure you keep that straight. Horizontal, remember, those are all the rules about the degree of the numerator. So I'm just going to put rules about degrees, right? If the numerator is bigger than the denominator, there's no horizontal. If the numerator is less than the denominator, it's y equals 0. If they're equal, you take the leading coefficient. But what a lot of people forgot on the last homework quiz is slant asymptotes. That's if the numerator is bigger than the denominator, you have to do long division. And again, I can promise you, you're going to have slant asymptotes on this test because we didn't have slant asymptotes the last time we talked about asymptotes. Okay? And then I'm going to pass back your homework quiz from yesterday, but you are definitely going to have to graph. I think there's just one where you have to graph and find your asymptotes and label all those points. Probably it's going to be like the one on your quiz from yesterday where there's 2 asymptotes. So it's going to be where you have to find the little shape in the middle. But make sure you find your asymptotes on this first, label nicely. Remember that when you graph, your graph is allowed to cross the horizontal asymptote. People really have trouble with that. But remember that horizontal asymptotes are what happens as x gets really big and really small. It never touches out there, but it can touch in the middle. And some people get thrown off by that still, even though I've told you that. So graphing is probably the worst thing from that section. And Then 2, 7, and 2, 8, I feel are very similar to each other. 2, 7, solve rational equations. Remember that that's just where you get to multiply everything by your common denominator, cancel stuff out, get your answers. But don't forget to check for extraneous solutions. You're not setting up intervals if it's an equal sign, right? Because you're just getting the solutions. And then 2, 8 is what we did day before yesterday. No, yesterday? No. Day before yesterday. Remember, that's where you, step 1 is you find what x can't equal, or your asymptotes. Step 2 is you solve the equation. And then step 3, you set up those intervals and you have to check which ones work, which ones don't work. Many people just end up solving these like equations and they forget the asymptote part. Remember, brackets or parentheses, those are like 5-ish points each, so make sure you show some work on that. I feel like there's less topics on this one than the last test. Like, I feel like it's more concise, but definitely some problems that take a little bit longer to do. Questions about any of that? That's it. That's all that's on your test. So, here's your review. Remember that all of your Chapter 2 homework is due tomorrow, including this review. And so, class time today, I'm giving you a lot of time to work on these problems, so that way if you have questions, you can get them answered. Definitely check your odd answers in the back. And, go back and look over your notes and your homework as you're doing these. I'm going to pass back your homework quizzes. After this test, we might be changing how we do homework because I just can't handle people not doing their homework and grading blank homework quizzes. So we might go to having a homework quiz like a short little homework quiz like every day or every other day to make people do their homework. So I'm just throwing that out there in advance because I'm kind of to my limit of not doing homework. It's not just Mason.
Are you still recording?
I am.
I leave Zane a message.
He's not going to watch this anyway.
He probably will.
They have better things to do, but
I'll text him and tell him to watch the video.
alright. Don't sing to him.
To Zane and future Mason, I just want to wish you good luck at the FFA convention, and I hope you're having a great time. And to me, don't forget to remind Mom to order your book and make an appointment to get your driver's license. That's all.